Hey guys, Dean here. This video is probably going to be a lot different than any video on our channel. I just wanted to make a video about why RuneScape, a game I've been playing for most of my life, lost its charm for me. So this video is going to be divided into three parts. The first part is going to be my background with RuneScape. Second part is going to be why I don't like why RuneScape 3 has lost its charm for me, and then the last part is going to be why old school RuneScape lost its charm for me. If you're only interested in either RuneScape 3 or old school RuneScape without any of the other parts, I'll have the annotation up on screen now to take you to those two parts and the timestamps if you want to find the parts yourself. So I've been playing RuneScape for about 12 years. I have almost 13,000 hours played on my main account, which is now RuneScape 3 alone. This doesn't include any other accounts or even old school RuneScape on this main account. So that amount of hours accounts for 6% of my life. And if we take away the time where I didn't know RuneScape and the time when I slept, so 8 hours per day, it's 16% of all my awake time since I found the game, which equates to 3 hours per day ever since I found the game. I actually used to be a RuneScape YouTuber back in the day. I used to make RuneScape sketches and RuneScape music videos. I had about 300 subscribers on my channel around 2008, which was a lot for me, but I know it's not a lot for most people. And I actually met Gali on RuneScape, and George was his classmate back then, so if it wasn't for RuneScape I never would have met them, and now we basically do most of the things together because we're such good friends. Here's a screenshot of my Rune Matrix profile on RuneScape 3 to serve as proof that I have played for this many years. I have censored my name because I don't really play the game anymore and I don't really want that name to be out there, but I do hope you believe me that it is my account. I've also played a lot of other MMOs and their titles will be listed on screen now. And a lot of time I have spent also playing World of Warcraft, but I only play for the first 3 months of every World of Warcraft expansion, and then I don't really like it anymore. Those first 3 months are what makes World of Warcraft the most fun for me. The new leveling, new areas, all that, but then it slowly fades away and I wait for the next expansion. So playing all those other MMOs, there were some things that always made me return to RuneScape after playing them, no matter how good those other MMOs were. And those things were mainly quests, because RuneScape has engaging quests that have a lot of puzzles, and I'm a person that really likes puzzles. And the storyline is what I really used to like on RuneScape. And the main thing about quests is the fact that most other MMOs usually have quests that say go there, kill those things, or go there, get that item and then come back. While RuneScape actually had, even though it has less quests than probably any other MMO, it actually had engaging quests that were really different from each other. So quests were the main reason why I first paid for my subscription to get more of them, because I used to be a free-to-play player for the first 6 or so years of playing RuneScape. But the other two things that made me like RuneScape so much more than other MMOs were the fact that you can play RuneScape single player, but then compare to other players and trade with them. So most of the things you do in game, you basically do alone with other players around you. You don't need to rely on other players to progress, and I really like that in games. I like being comparable to other players. I like trading with other players, but I don't like to be dependent on other players. And the last thing that made me really like RuneScape above other MMOs was it was pretty much the only MMO I played that wasn't completely combat focused. So you could do a lot of other things instead of just killing monsters to progress. So I just remember the first time I played RuneScape, I was so happy that I could grab some wheat and then go to the windmill and turn it into flour, and then I could milk a cow for its milk, and then I could get some eggs from chickens and bake something from it. So I really like that part of that aspect of RuneScape, that you weren't only forced to do combat but could do so many other things and you would still feel that you're progressing. So before I get into RuneScape 3 and old school RuneScape parts, there's one last thing I would like to say, and that is the 3 things I really like most in RPGs. So RPGs in general and not just MMOs. The first thing that I really like is that the game doesn't really start at max level. So the main offender of this, starting at max level, is probably World of Warcraft. You only really start farming for gear and doing the main content of the game once you're already at max level, which you reach pretty fast in the expansion, and then you just actually start playing and grinding for things. But I really prefer games where you still level, where you've reached the end game but still continue to progress. And one good example of this, even though it's not an MMO, would be Path of Exile, where you actually, when you reach the end game, you're probably around level 90 and you still have 10 more levels to go before you reach max level. And when it comes to seasons, not a lot of people even reach max levels. So RuneScape used to be one of these games where you had fun all the way through and max levels really weren't your main goal, but that's not true anymore. The second thing is that you can do everything or almost everything solo, and I really like that about RuneScape. You can play with other people if you want, but you can achieve anything in the game solo, and that is another thing that's not really present anymore. And the third thing I really like about RPGs is that the game is not completely PvM or PvP focused, that there are many other things you can do to spend your time and progress in that do not include killing monsters or other players. So let's start with RuneScape 3, the game that I played for most of my life. So the first thing, the first offender, is probably the most obvious one, and it's microtransactions. RuneScape used to be a game that you only paid for once per month, and then you could enjoy every single aspect of the game. But then the game started adding cosmetic items that you could buy with real money, which started a slippery slope that ended with, well, it's still going, but now you can basically buy experience with real money, and it's a gamble as well, so it's even worse than just directly buying experience. And I don't even like the aspect of buying cosmetic items with real money, because it devalued the aspect of combining actual cosmetic items you can get through gameplay, because everything that's bought through microtransactions looks a lot better. Back in the old days of RuneScape, people used to spend a lot of time, me included, on finding items that are quest rewards or treasure trail rewards or something like that, that looked good together, and combine a custom out of that that you would use while skilling or while bank standing or standing at the Grand Exchange trying to sell your items. And people would admire each other's costumes, how they make certain items that are not part of a set work together. And that aspect of the game is completely gone now, because you just pay a couple of bucks and you have a very cool costume. And even further devaluation of cosmetic items came from skilling outfits from Treasure Hunter, or Squill of Fortune as it used to be known, because you are basically forced to skill, well, not forced, but if you want decent experience rate, you are kind of forced to wear skilling outfits while skilling, which pretty much means that you wear that instead of your outfit. But they added the keys that you can use to make your normal RuneScape clothes in-game items appear as overrides, which is just more microtransactions. Moving on, since its release, one of my main goals on RuneScape has been the completion escape, because I always like doing quests. I like doing small side quests, mini quests, things like that, and when you have those quests that have a thing after them, like finding treasures after meeting history with that key, I always like doing those things, so getting a completion escape just seemed perfect for me. But they started adding PVM requirements to it, and with that the whole game started becoming more and more PVM focused each month, really. Ever since the addition of evolution of combat, which I'm not really opposed of, it's okay, I guess. It's not really better than the system before to me, but I don't mind it. But ever since evolution of combat was added, the game started becoming more and more PVM focused, and every other feature of the game was pushed aside. So the game wasn't what I liked anymore. It wasn't not PVM based like it used to be. You had to spend most of your time PVMing. Most of the players would PVM to get the money, which they used to level other skills fast instead of leveling other skills to use what you get from them in PVM, or just leveling other skills like it used to be. And the raids are the greatest offender of this PVM focus of the game. And the raids being requirements for a completion escape is what threw me off of getting it, because I don't like group PVM content, and I don't like PVM content in general. And I think that RuneScape 3 is trying to be too much like World of Warcraft, when the thing that made it great for me was that it was so much different from World of Warcraft. Another thing that I find problematic about RuneScape 3 at the moment is that it is becoming too easy to reach max levels in the game because of all the easier methods that got added to the game, and because of Treasure Hunter giving you so much extra experience. Everything is so AFK and easy right now that the game is actually starting to feel like it starts at max level, that you max first and then you start doing the content that the game is releasing lately. So you first max and then you start doing PVM, which is making me hate it a lot more. And I feel like there's not a lot of new players anymore trying to get good in the game, and I feel like the only players you meet in RuneScape, no matter where you go, is people that are pretty much max level and have played for a long time, or people that have come back that will play for a couple of months and then either max and become some of the max level players or quit, and you don't really see any actual new players anymore. As I mentioned earlier, one of the things that made me like RuneScape the most were quests. And I believe that quests are also becoming somewhat too easy right now, because every single quest has a built-in guide that shows you exactly where you have to go. You don't really have to think for yourself as much anymore as you used to. I actually completed most of the quests in-game without a guide, and that was what made them so much better for me. But now every quest is just so streamlined. You have the location where you have to search, where you have to go marked on your map, and you have so many hints that it just doesn't feel like the good old RuneScape quests anymore. It's basically showing you where to click, and you click there and that's it, you progress further. And most of the quests are also focused too much about PVM, because the main part of the quest is fighting a boss at the end, and the rest is just thrown in there. And the last main thing I would like to mention about RuneScape 3 is that I feel that it's going to be limited by mobile. I know that they kinda said that mobile is not going to limit the main game, but let's be honest here, mobile devices aren't really able to do all the things computers are. You can't do some things on mobile that you can do with a keyboard and mouse, and you can't do some things with such a small screen. So if they keep their promise that everything in the game is going to be accessible on mobile, they're really limited into how far the game can advance on PC. And moving on to old school RuneScape, it's actually a game I have a lot more respect for than RuneScape 3 because it doesn't have microtransactions, it doesn't have evolution of combat, and it's not as PvM focused as RuneScape 3, and because it actually takes a lot longer to level skills, so you don't feel like the real game starts at max level because it takes so long to reach it. There is one main thing I always disliked about old school RuneScape ever since it came out, and this is really a personal thing that I know a lot of other people don't feel, but I always feel like old school RuneScape feels too much like a private server, mainly because of the content that's getting added, which just seems like someone took the main RuneScape game from 2007 and is just adding what they feel like. I know the content is all voted by the players, but some content just seems like it doesn't really fit the main game, like rooftop agility courses, for example. And I don't know, it just feels like the game will never really advance, it will never really progress. And one of the good things I felt about RuneScape is with its monthly, weekly updates back in the day, you always felt like the game is advancing and moving on and you moved on with it. But with old school RuneScape, even though content is getting added, it's not really an advancement, it's more like just filling out the game. I have nothing against players that still play it, I still respect the game myself, but I just don't feel like playing it. And another thing that I really feel like old school RuneScape is lacking for me is the fact that the story on it will never advance. It is stuck where it is, and I really cared about RuneScape's story. They are adding some new quests, even though rarely, and the quests that they added on old school RuneScape are pretty much better than the quests added on RuneScape 3, but it doesn't feel like it's canon, it doesn't feel like the real story that I liked so much is the one that's continuing. And the last thing I really fear about old school RuneScape is that it is at some point going to go down the RuneScape 3 paths of things I don't like. I feel that it's going to become too much PvM focused, where the main focus of the game will be the bosses. I feel that it's going to be too much group focused. I don't really think they're going to add microtransactions, that would make people way too angry, but the other things that I hate about RuneScape 3 I think are coming to old school RuneScape in the future, especially when most of the player base becomes high level, max level. They're going to want more and more bossing content, which will make the game way more PvM focused and make me like it way less than I would normally. I know these reasons why I dislike old school RuneScape may seem a little bit lackluster and not really sufficient to make me dislike the game, but as I said, this is basically just my feeling, this is just basically my charm for the game, what I liked about the game, not my actual grief with the game. I think old school RuneScape is really going in the right direction for most of its player base, and I hope it keeps growing strong and better, but it's just not for me. So don't take this as my hate for the game, take this as just why I personally don't feel like playing the game anymore. I've actually taken a break from RuneScape many times in the past, but it was never more than a couple of months, and I always knew that I'm going to return at some point. I just needed a break and that was it. But this time I finally feel that I'm never coming back, and that this is pretty much it. And I'm a person that really knows how I feel about things, and I know when I feel that I'm not going to return to the game, and when I know that I'm going to return to a game. And this is basically it for me when it comes to RuneScape. I will probably log on to check updates, but I'm never going to play it for more than 3 hours together like I used to. I am glad for every single experience I gained while playing the game, and I do not regret a single second spent on it. I actually learned most of the English I know from playing RuneScape, and I'm now actually studying to become an English teacher, so it has helped me a lot in my life as a whole. And It is sad to leave this chapter behind me, but I will look at it with a smile, not with a sad face. If I ever change my mind and return to RuneScape, which I doubt, I will probably go playing a Iron Man, so I don't have to do group content, that I can do everything solo. It's probably the saving grace of the game for me, but I really doubt I'll ever touch the game again. But these have been my opinions, and I would like to hear yours in the comments, so feel free to leave them below. I doubt we will make any more videos like this on the channel, but thank you for watching. I hope you understand my feelings for the game, and we'll see you in our next video. Thank you.